Hello everyone and welcome back to some new Super Mario Bros. Wii without touching the ground. This is part 4, so let's go! Today we're going to be taking a look at World 7, and because it takes place in the clouds, there isn't a lot of ground up there. So it shouldn't be too hard, right? Well, most of the world isn't. But let's take a look at the entire world anyway. So, first of all, we have 7-1. Which thankfully takes place entirely on these rotating sprites or on top of pipes. So, since pipes are objects, there's no ground up here. And there wouldn't be any ground in this entire level if it wasn't for the beginning and end. But, while the beginning is perfectly fine because we start on a ground, allowing us to use a meta ground press, the end isn't so forgiving. And that's why we're playing this level as Mini Mario. Because at the end, we're going to have to, well, get to the flagpole, which is really far away. This requires us to actually fall all the way to the flagpole by air twirling a whole lot. And I mean, like, shaking as if you were shaking an enemy in Wario Land Shake It. But without further ado, let's go! And as you can see, I just barely make it. And now we can move on to 7-2. Hopefully it won't be as bad. Now, there is one thing I should probably say, and that is we're going to need a propeller mushroom for some of the jumps. And this is so that way we can avoid some chain chomps. Now, the whole gimmick in this level is that there are these water bubbles, basically making it sort of a mixture between a water level and a platforming level. Yay! Thankfully, all the water bubbles make it so we can basically skip all the platforming and just not use platforms. And if we do need platforms, we can just land on objects like question mark blocks or bill blasters. So, we do have a few tricky jumps though, and that's why we're using the propeller mushroom. But this makes this level pretty easy. There are some tighter jumps as well, like this one right here, where we actually have to land on and in between these little chain chomps, and a little bit farther up ahead. But thankfully this entire level is, well, as I'm sure you've noticed, it has a lot of semi-solid platforms, giving us the ability to make it through. And with that, now we can actually pretty much move on to 7-3. We just have one last platforming section on these bubbles. We can avoid the last star coin because who needs star coins? And then we've made it to the very last few bubbles. We make our way around these bill blasters, and then we propeller our way to the goal. And now we can finally move on to 7-3. Now, this next level is 7-3. And I'm not mispronouncing that word. I say free because this level is completely free in every way. Yeah, it takes place completely on mushroom platforms with no ground to, well, I'm sure you can see it. Doesn't exist. And as you can clearly see, I can make my way through these mushroom platforms, meaning they're semi-solids, meaning I am perfectly allowed to stand on them. And this means there's no grounding in the entire level. Not even at the beginning. Although there is a little at the end. Although, since we don't have to deal with a pipe, it doesn't really matter. And this basically makes this level impossible to fail. In fact, I can lose this propeller mushroom here, and I'll still be able to make it through. So, Also, something that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to restock on mini mushrooms. Because by this point, I've used my last one. And we're going to need some mini mushrooms for the tower. Because, fun fact, there is a secret exit in that tower. And we kind of want that. Because it helps a lot with this run. But sadly, since we don't have any more in our inventory, we're going to have to go ahead and restock at a Toad House. But thankfully, it's no problem as we're able to go ahead and make our way to the end of the goal. And there we go. Course clear. Also, if you thought I just touched the ground right next to the goal, I didn't. I was on a slope preventing me from. So now we can move on to the mini boss. I quickly go ahead and get a mini mushroom and let's it go. Now, this little tower you would think would be bad, but it's not. It takes pretty much entirely this entire level just to be on this little moving platform that we get to control with motion controls. Yay. It's honestly not that bad. We just have to be careful about the bullets. Now, you're probably wondering, why do I need the mini mushroom for a secret exit? Why don't I just use a propeller mushroom? Well, it's because of these bullets. And if you remember World 6, bullets can be jumped on with Mini Mario. I'm still very upset about that world. But thankfully we're up to the bonsai bills now. Which means we're almost done with the first section. We go ahead and maneuver our way in between them before finally making our way all the way to the checkpoint. We just have to go ahead. We don't even have to bounce on them. And there we go. Now all we have to do is jump into the pipe, which is easily doable with one precise jump, counting as another meta ground press. Now that we're at the midway point, we have another little elevator section before we make our way to the secret exit. Thankfully, this section isn't bad at all, as long as you're lucky and you avoid the bombs. We make our way through, and I believe it's a little bit, maybe 3/4 of a way, or almost to the top. But these moving sprites, if you can see, some of them go into the wall. And the one on the right is a little bit more open, allowing us to run out on it. And now we have bullet bills and a whole lot of ground. Thankfully, we're able to jump on one of the bullet bills and ride it all the way to the secret exit. Yeah, this was a lot easier than World 6. And now we can move on to one of the last levels. That being a parabeetle parade. Thankfully, this isn't Sieve Gaming, and parabeetles aren't too bad to us. At least, I hope they aren't. So let's go and find out. Now, the thing about this world is it's an autoscroller. And the thing about this autoscroller is it's really slow and annoying. And there is one problem in this level, and it's at the very end of this level. So every time I mess up, I have to go through this entire autoscroller again, because I'm doing this on console and I'm not doing this on an emulator with save states. So, yay, I get to do this every single time. Now, you're probably wondering, well, what is at the end? Well, it's basically 6 or not 6-1, 7-1. And it's basically the same problem. Now, you're probably wondering what I mean by that. Is it just another place where I have to air twirl all the way to the end? Yeah, essentially. Although I do a nice wall jump there as well. Thankfully, we're almost at the halfway point here. We can go ahead and collect another star coin. And we have a checkpoint, I believe, on the top, on that semi-solid. No, we do not. Although I feel like it's halfway, because difficulty ramps up from here. But this is a Mario game, so it doesn't ramp up too much. Don't worry though. That's for World 8. But finally, we can make our way onto a bunch of big parabeetles. And now we get one of our harder sections of this. That being, we have to do a pretty precise few jumps onto single parabeetles. One coming up here. Actually, more. And these are moving a little bit faster, making the timing a little bit harder. And after a few jumps though, we're able to make our way over to a pipe on the top. Now we have to take the pipe on the top, and now we have to hold left in order to do a nice wall jump before air twirling all the way to the goal. And there we go. Now we've had probably the hardest level out of the way. And now we get to move on to, well, the boss. That secret level cut out most of World 7. And even better, it cuts out basically the entire boss level, just leaving the boss fight. Now, we do have to be careful here because this spawns us in the sky, like the airship. But thankfully, we can just make our way over to the pipe. And because we have Mini Mario, it's pretty easy. We fall down, and we land in the door. We're holding up, and we use a meta ground press in order to make our way to the boss. Thankfully, we spawn on the ground here in this hallway, and we're able to just run here, using our meta ground press before the boss fight. And now we have a really easy boss, actually. I would make a joke about him being tedious or something, but honestly, he's just pretty fun. He has a pretty good scatter shot, and he does do this jumping little mechanic between the platforms, but he's not that hard. You can still mess up though, but he's just a fun boss in general. And because these platforms are moving, we know they're sprites, meaning yeah, it's perfectly okay to jump across them. And now all we have to do is one more hit, and then we'll be done with World 7. He spawns on the right, we're able to ground pound him. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this. You can't deal damage to bosses without ground pounding on them. Although, it doesn't really matter most of the time. But with that, we land on the semi-solid with the key. And now we can make our way out of this world. Now you're probably thinking, well, the challenges that were here weren't so bad. And you'd be right. But you're also probably thinking, what about the challenges in the future? What about World 8? And that is going to be another episode. But trust me, it's a lot worse than World 7. I will definitely say that. But without further ado, Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
What?